Squatters are winning. Good morning, everybody. CJ Van Slytman. CJ Goes Unleashed. 27-year landlord, entrepreneur. I'll tell you what, guys. It's becoming kind of disheartening. If you know anything about squatters, or if you're new to the channel and you have no idea about squatters, I've been chasing squatters for the past 20 years and getting them out of properties all over Florida and Western Pennsylvania and Ohio. And it's getting worse, guys. Now, there are some states, if you don't know what a squatter is somebody that illegally takes possession of your property. And this can occur when you're on vacation. It can occur if you are an absentee landlord. It can occur if somebody just decides that they want to live in your property and they make it so. And there's very little with the laws right now in most states that you can do to eliminate this issue or to remove them from your property, because police won't remove them. And a lot of folks who walk into their squatter situation, either they have a second property or vacation property or even their own home, trying to get police to help. It's a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. So you might find yourself in a little bit of hot water if you try to change the locks, or if you try to break into the property, or if you cut off the electric, or if you cut off the gas, or if you cut off the water. You might be the one going in handcuffs. So, quick story. I was watching some YouTube this morning, and I saw a guy in Seattle in a $2 million property who's been squatting, and he paid his last rent and his security deposit, and for 2 years this guy has not paid his rent, and the owner of the property has incurred over $35,000 in legal fees and has gone to court. He's on his fourth time now trying to evict him. So I have a relatable story, personal story. About 10 years ago, I rented to a lady named Erica who had a daughter with special needs. So everything was cool. She had the money and everything to rent the property. So she paid me my first and my security and my last month's rent. So I think back then it wasn't in a great neighborhood. It was like $750 a month or something like that. And her daughter had special needs. So I work with special needs kids, and I felt bad for her because I ran her credit check and her background check, and everything was good because I always run the background checks and the FBI check, fingerprint test, and all that stuff. And called all her references, called her old landlord. Oh yeah, she's wonderful. Erica's wonderful. So she moves into the property, and it was just her and her daughter. Well, a couple days later, I walk up to the property. I had to do something. She said something was wrong. I changed a light bulb or something small. So I walked up to the property, and there's like 5 or 6 gangsters sitting on the stoop, all dreadlock dudes. I know they're selling drugs because there's like people walking up like every 2 seconds, and they're doing handoffs. So, I'm a landlord. I've been doing this, close to 30 years. I've kind of seen it like literally all. So I walk into the house, and the house is really nice, and she's really nice, and everything's fine. And then a month passes, and I don't get the rent. So I call her up, and I'm like, hey, Erica, where's the rent? She's like, oh, yeah, I have bed bugs. And I was like, no, you don't have bed bugs. How come you have bed bugs all of a sudden? She's like, yeah, bed bugs. I called one of those companies to remediate it or whatever, some pest control company. I was like, well, I'll send my guys in, and we'll take care of the issue. So she's like, yeah, no problem. I send my guys over, and she refuses to let them in. So I'm like, okay, I know I got a problem already. So I asked her to pay the rent again, and she came up with another excuse. I can't remember what it was. Something like the stove wasn't working. I was like, no problem. I'll send somebody out to fix the stove. So this persisted for about 3 months or so before I finally said to her, okay, listen, I'm going to have to take you to court. And she was like, great. And I was thinking, like, why is this great? Why are you so excited about me taking you to court? Well, let me tell you why. Because when I showed up to court, guess who was with her? An attorney that was paid for by you, the taxpayer. And it reminded me of this story in Seattle because this guy has been there for 2 years in a $2 million house. Guess what the city of Seattle did? They have a fund for tenants, things like this, squatters, and they paid his $82,000 debt to the landlord. However, the landlord incurred $35,000 in debt going to court. So here's my story. So I take her to court. She shows up with an attorney. I don't have an attorney. And I'm like, okay, this is a clear-cut case. What I did not know is that the judge, 90% of the time, in our little town of, the town was McKeesport, the district judge, which was in Turtle Creek, and I think he's still there, he grew up in an impoverished neighborhood, so he really has an affinity toward the folks that can't pay their rent. So we go to court, and we're sitting in front of the judge, and the judge tells the judge that she has bed bugs. And she tells the judge that the toilet almost fell through the floor. And then he finds out daughter has special needs. So not only does the judge find in favor for her, he tells me that I have to return her security deposit, her first month's rent, her last month's rent. I can't charge her for, it was like 6 months by the time we actually, 5 months, 6 months before we actually got a court case and went to court. I wasn't allowed to charge her for that entire time. And then he says I have to pay for the utilities, the electric, the gas, and she went through the winter. So I don't remember what it was, but it was thousands. And he found in favor of her. And not only that, he granted her $2,400 for Terminex. It was Terminex. And Terminex never came out. All she had was a quote from Terminex, and he granted her the $2,400. So all in all, it cost me about $9,000. And then I went back to court again. When I went back the second time, I won, but she appealed it. So she took like another month and a half. So we're like 7.5, 8 months into this thing. She appealed it. And when she appealed it, it was another 10 days. And then it was like another 30 days for a court date. So we're like 9, 10 months into this thing. So I've already lost like $7,000-8,000 in rent, plus all my utilities. So I'm like $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 into this thing, and she's squatting. Obviously, she's squatting. So I go back to the property, and I'm talking with her husband, Bob, who had moved in with like 5 other people that had moved in that weren't on the lease. And they're using all my utilities, my water and my electric and all that, yada, yada, yada. And Bob says to me, Erica never had bed bugs, right? And I was like, I didn't think so. And he said, yeah, all the mold on her furniture too. That wasn't from here. That was from her storage locker. So I was like, why didn't you say something in court? And he's like, that's my wife. I really couldn't go against her. So she files the appeal, and we go back to court, and I finally, after like 9, 10 months, finally win a judgment against her. And the judge, finally, he had to give me possession of the property. So when I go to the property, it was real nice. So when I go to the property with the sheriff, the doors are open, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. I know this already. I walked in, the entire house was trashed. There was someone took an iron and put iron marks all over the carpet. The water lines were cut in the basement. The electric panel was cut right at the panel. All the lines to the house were cut. What was left of the plumbing was all destroyed. The midnight plumbers came in. They took all the copper. So the whole house had to be replumbed. The whole house had to be rewired. They took the stove. They broke the door on the stove. I don't know if they bent it up, bent it down, but it was facing down and it was broken. The sinks were clogged. Everything you could imagine. The sliding glass door was busted in the back room, the 3rd bedroom. And I think we ended up spending right around $20,000 to repair everything for the property. So all in all, it would have been a better idea probably for me to have someone remove the squatter. But at that time, there was nobody that was actually doing this. And that's how I decided to start doing this for myself and for others. And it's developed into a business now. And there's a guy named Flash Shelton who does it in California. But California is really tough to get rid of squatters. Florida's made it easier. Texas has made it easier. Now Louisiana's making it easier. And Tennessee is making it easier. New York even signed a law, which I don't think they're going to adhere to. But the point of this story is, these tweakers, these tenants that become squatters are very, very difficult to remove. The whole process took me almost a year, and I'm a landlord, and it cost me probably all in all like $35,000 to $40,000 to gain my property back. And I learned the hard way by trying to take the front door off and by turning off the utilities. And when I turned off the utilities, I got a call within 30 minutes from the McKeesport police. And they said, if you don't turn the utilities back on in 30 minutes, we're coming out there to arrest you. And we're going to send Westview police to arrest you. So I had to turn the utilities back on. And you know what? It wasn't even so much about the money. It was more about the stress of having to deal with these squatters. So I urge you, if you have squatters or you have tenants that became squatters are much easier to remove because they don't have a lease. And all you have to do is just prove that you have a lease or someone has a lease and you can walk into the property. But once you're the property owner and the tenants have a lease in place, it is court. It's definitely court because you can't get them out by dragging them out like the old days. You can't mess them up. I know it's bullshit that you have to do this, but you do have to hire an attorney most likely, and that costs you a few thousand. Look at my situation. It cost me $35,000 to $40,000 to remove a tenant that became a squatter. So please do your background checks and make sure that you vet your person. Now, I thought I did, and usually I don't have this issue. I have in the past with some lower income properties, but don't get creative. Don't get smart. If you're trying to get smart, you're going to end up losing. So if you do have a squatter, you can always call me. I'm easy to locate, CJ Van Slytman. I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and I'll fly out to you and I'll remove your squatter for you. I work mostly in PA and in Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. But if you're in, Arizona and you can't find anybody out there, please give me a call and I'll certainly be, happy to listen to what you have to say and at least give you some suggestions. But to end this video, I thank you if you made it this far. Thank you for watching. I'd like you to leave your comments below about what you think about squatters and if you've ever had a squatter or if you know anything about it. Enjoy your day and keep the conversation going in the comments. And hopefully things change here in the very near future where we can get rid of these folks, bounce them out right away within a day or two instead of the 10-month, 12-month, 2-year in California, 3-year in New York eviction process. And God forbid that my state starts paying squatters back rents because that would be the ultimate slap in the face. But in the interim, thanks for watching and thumbs up and have a wonderful day, guys.